Sara Hennessey is a very witty comedic writer and energetic stand-up who currently calls Brooklyn, New York home. Originally from Aurora, Ontario, and renowned for being an award-winning and well-respected Toronto comic when she lived in that city, Hennessey has just released her second stand-up album. It's called They Know Too Much. It's very funny, and it prompted Sarah and I to have a conversation about her upbringing and early interest in the comedic arts, the many pros and many cons of the Canadian comedy infrastructure, and how homegrown comedy creators are often treated in this country. That time I saw her open for Patton Oswalt at JFL 42 in Toronto. Her new album, They Know Too Much, and much, much more. With in-kind support from Pizza Trokadero, The Bookshelf, and Planet Bean Coffee in Guelph, and Grandad's Donuts in Hamilton, and of course, listeners like you who make flexible monthly pledges at patreon.com/creativecontrol. Download episodes, subscribe to this podcast, and tell others to do the same. This is the 422nd episode of Creative Control, featuring Sara Hennessey with your host, me, Vish Khanna.
I guess my whole thing is I'm like, wow! Like, that's like my vibe. And I hope you're into it. But lately I've been sort of like being like, why is that my vibe? And I think it's because I'm a girl, so it's a survival technique. So I come out and I'm like, wow! You know, like, if you don't like me, that's on you. And then I started imagining what it would be like if I was a guy and how I would do it then. And whoa, would I do things differently. I would have sauntered out here at a snail's pace. Just dragging my feet, not looking too impressed at all. Eyelids half-mast. And I'd look around, I'd just be like, let's get the fuck out of here. And you'd be like, oh. But I'm a girl, so I'm like, who here needs a kiss on the lips? I know how. But if I was a guy, I'd be like, I'm basically a gun. And you'd be like, mommy likey. I'm going to represent him in the court of law. I'm going to go back to school for it. I'm not qualified yet.
Hi, Sarah. How's it going?
Oh, my gosh, Vish. Hi. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm very well. Where in the world are you?
I'm in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, New York, baby.
Wow, that sounds like the big time. How long have you been in Brooklyn?
This is my 4th month. I moved here in the beginning of May. And boy, am I settling in.
Wait, what does that mean exactly?
I don't know. I have a couch. I have everything's unpacked. I'm making a few new friends. You know, classic move moment.
Very good. Very good. I think of you and I know of you as a Toronto person. Are you from Toronto?
I'm originally from just north of Toronto. I grew up in Aurora, Ontario, Canada. And then I moved to Toronto to pursue stand-up when I was 19. But yeah, I'm so Toronto. Oh my God, there's no getting away from it. I couldn't be more Toronto. It's one of the things I first admit when I'm on stage here in New York. I'm like, can I be any more Toronto? And everybody's like, no.
Now, what does that mean? How does that manifest itself, you being so Toronto? What makes you so Toronto at this point?
I just feel like I don't know. It's just a glaring thing. It's like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like an essence. Well,
I highlighted
like essence is so Toronto.
Yeah, I highlighted it right away too. Like, I think of you as a Toronto. Not only are you a Toronto person, to me, you are Toronto.
Oh my God, that's so nice. Because you know what? Now that I'm not living in Toronto, I do miss it so much, and I miss riding my bike everywhere and getting everywhere in less than 10 minutes, and just sort of like. The Sesame Street vibe of knowing people all over the place. That's just sort of what happens when you live somewhere for a chunk of time. And so thank you. I take that as a huge compliment.
Yeah,
I love Toronto.
It's meant to be a compliment. So I guess what brought you to Brooklyn, New York in May of 2018?
Well, I wanted to try to switch things up and kick things up a level for me professionally, and I thought that I should move to the States. And so I got my green card, and I decided to move to New York over LA because the stand-up scene here is super rad and wild. It's like a million trillion shows, and LA is very cool too, but I just feel like my way into everyone's heart has always been stand up, so I just got to make sure I can do that as much as I can.
Well, you're a very gifted stand-up. I've seen you perform stand-up many times, and I think you're amazing at it.
Thank you.
So, and I do know also that some of our fellow Canadians, they go down to LA for, I think primarily, some of them do stand-up, some of them get writing gigs.
That's right.
And I think that seems to be what motivates a lot of people to go to LA is the writing.
Oh, yeah.
The writing gigs. But is there as much writing to do in, or rather, are there as many writing opportunities, I suppose, in New York, by your reckoning?
I have a feeling they definitely exist, probably even more than Toronto, but probably less than LA, I'm guessing. But you know what? I just kind of got here, so I'm still unfolding into like the professional realm here. Like, I don't have any representation here yet, so I'm just sort of like, making friends, and I guess soon when I do have somebody putting me up for writing jobs and acting jobs, we'll see what the vibe is like as far as like abundance.
Yeah, I guess part of my question is, are you motivated primarily to do stand-up? The reason I make the distinction is some of our stand-up friends, they go and they end up writing and doing stand-up, but you chose Brooklyn because it is a stand-up mecca. There's lots of opportunities to do stand-up, maybe more so than in LA. Does that speak to your desire to be the best stand-up comedian you can be?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like stand-up for me has always led to writing and led to acting and led to other projects for me. Like, so I just feel like it's important that it's like something that I'm able to have access to as much as possible. So that's why I chose here. But I do love writing and I do love acting. So I don't know. I just feel like, yeah, it's the first, yeah, it's just my prime artistic expression, I guess, is stand up. So I just feel like I need to be able to do that, or else I'll feel really like neutered.
Well, you're also interesting choice of words, by the way.
Thank you. I guess we all just pictured a cartoon dog that was sad.
So
like, oh, no.
So you're an amazing and theatrical comedian, is what I was trying to say there. You are also, like, the acting is important to you. I feel like when you perform, you put your whole body, your whole spirit is into every joke, right?
Oh, that makes me feel so nice to hear. Yeah, totally. It's like I put everything I got into it for sure, but I'm just having a silly time, and but yeah, I try to just do it with my whole self. So yeah, it gets pretty physical and silly. But like, it's not like I'm not thinking about it. It just sort of happens. And yeah, so I guess my big goal is just to do stuff in front of camera. But every time I get a writing job, boy, I get so much out of it, no matter what it is. I always like, there's just so much to brush up on and learn about, and so many skill sets to develop. Yeah,
well, I'm calling you from Ontario, which houses Toronto, which we've been talking about.
Oh my God, we love it.
Yeah, Canada has a rich history of dispatching into the world very clever, theatrical, comedic minds. They're comedic actors, comedic writers. I'm curious about what spurred your interest in the realm of comedy. Was it being here in this country? Was it American television or film or whatever? Like, can you talk about that? I don't know your origin story.
Yeah, I started. I went to an arts high school, Unionville High School, and so I got in for the drama program. And in 10th grade, we did like a unit on stand-up comedy. But we would always watch all the other grade shows. So when I was in grade 9, watching all the grade 10s do all their different, like, we went to Yuck Yucks and or something like that, and I think it was Yuck Yucks, and watched everybody perform, blah blah blah. I sort of just knew I wanted to do it, and then when I was like 16, and I had my first chance to do it, I just went for it, and I never looked back. And I sort of really identified. I was like, this is what I'm doing. This is who I am. I'm a comedian, and I want to be a comedian.
So were there particular comedians that you looked up to at that time?
Yeah. Well, basically, I'd say, like, growing up, we watched Kids in the Hall like crazy. And I have two older brothers, and I remember just, well, I think it's just a family dynamic. Like, I wanted their approval so bad, and boy, was it hard to get it. But just watching them, like, laugh so hard at, like, certain programs, like, even when we used to watch David Letterman, or, like, the Weekend Update with, like, Norm Macdonald, or, like, you know what I mean? Just, like, some family viewing Conan O'Brien and Kids in the Hall. I'd watch them laugh, like, this, like, super true guttural laugh, and I was just, like, you know what I mean? Like, I knew it was funny, and I felt like there's nothing better than to be a funny person. And so I've always, but they still don't really find me funny. but I think that's why I'll just always keep doing it. Like, you just want, but when other people do, if it's the best feeling in the world. But I think it started off, I was influenced by those people that I mentioned, and the need to be funny and to get that kind of reaction.
Yeah, you needed the reaction.
Oh, baby, you know it. I'm so insecure.
No, it sounds like you wanted familial approval. That's all.
Yeah, and it feels so good to perform something is so silly, and then people are into it.
Yeah. Well, I had the exact same, Kids in the Hall, Late Night with Conan O'Brien, the first iteration of Conan's show, and Norm Macdonald, all of those, they're huge for me. They're all part of me. And you're saying they're part of you too. One of the reasons I had to ask the Canadian question, but I hear a lot of Kids in the Hall within your comedy, if I may say.
Thank you. Well, perhaps it was, was very influential then, because it was one of those things I remember not knowing exactly, not being able to explain why something's funny, but knowing it is, and then you're just like laughing and how things are weird. It's just like kind of like a weirdness, like kind of a strange comedy. But yeah, I think that a lot of us in Canada were watching a lot of the same stuff, and those were the things we were watching. And then the other thing I grew up like watching religiously was The Three Amigos was a big movie for me. I still watch it all the time. Like, it's honestly something I watch religiously, and I feel like that's like that's like a dream come true movie for me for some reason. And my dream is to be like in a really just funny, good movie. Like, that just makes people so happy.
Yeah. So what is it about Three Amigos? Three Amigos was not. I watched it when I was younger. It did not have the impact on me that, say, something like Spies Like Us. Spies Like Us, to me, was like just one of these.
That was your jam.
Well, it was just a film it was a movie that I just would watch over and over again and find something new about it. There was always some little thing that I hadn't noticed before, and I could not stop watching it. And I watched Three Amigos only a few times. I feel like I should revisit it. Do you remember what it was? I mean, obviously you got Chevy Chase, you got Steve Martin, you got Martin Short. That's an amazing trio. But
I think it's just because they were so silly, but not in an overt. Like, I guess it maybe is in an overt way. It just felt like it's just true. Silly, funny things, but they weren't obnoxious. Like, it was just like characters who were trying their best, but they couldn't do anything right. And I don't know, it's just I don't know why. It's hard to explain. It's like a lot of people, even now that I moved here, people are like, okay, so what kind of comedy do you do? It's hard to explain why something's funny, because you almost ruin it a bit when you over-explain it.
Sure, yeah.
And then people are like, who are you? Like, what's your deal? I'm like, well, basically my comedy style is like me to the max, like, or me extra version of me, silliness. Like, it's hard to explain why. And then they're like, and then what kind of reaction do I expect from that kind of answer? It's like, people are like, okay, like, it's like, I don't know, it's weird. It's sort of like, I think I heard Greg Proops talk on his podcast about how comedy is just comedy, but with music you have so many subgenres.
Sure.
So people go to comedy shows. He was saying something like, people go to comedy shows and they're like, I didn't like that. Like, that's not what I wanted. It's like, well, you have a computer in your hand. Like, you can look it up before you go. But also, there's like different styles of comedy. So if you like, major, like filthy, nasty, like, roast battle comedy that's just gonna like mess up your feelings, like you're probably not gonna love me. Like,
Right. Yeah, there's a certain niceness and humility to maybe your comedy.
Yeah, I better write that down for when next time somebody asks me to explain who I am.
there's a kind of Canadian quality to it. I mean, I think it's funny to me that have you been following the Steve Martin and Martin Short stuff, like since they had their own Netflix special and they've been doing shows together?
I haven't. I watched their Netflix special, but I haven't been following any news on it. I had enjoyed it, but obviously we all know I'm a Three Amigos head, so it's right up my alley.
I bring it up because isn't it interesting? Because I brought up Spies Like Us as well. It's fascinating what has happened to Chevy Chase, isn't it? He is like Steve Martin, Martin Short are kind of notoriously nice. They're known for being very nice. Chevy, not so much. And I think it's interesting that Steve and Martin, you know what I mean, Steve Martin and Martin Short. They didn't include Chevy. I don't know what happened there. Chevy's maybe got some years on. I don't even know.
Know what? I talk about this with my mom a lot, and my dad actually, because we all were like Three Amigos people, and we all like the new special. But if you see footage of Chevy Chase, his health is really bad right now.
Yeah,
he's aged badly, and do you know what? Maybe it has something to do with you hear stories about him being not the nicest guy. And then people do scientific experiments where they have like a jar of dirt and they swear at one jar of dirt and they're nice to the other jar of dirt. and the nice jar, but the jar that they're nice to is it ends up being fine. And the one that they're mean to is like all moldy and stuff. Like maybe it's not good for you to be negative in life. I don't know. Or maybe we have them all wrong. Well, he just has bad health.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that also strikes me about... I mean, the first track on your new and excellent stand-up record, They Know Too Much, is called Positive Attitude. You have a positive attitude.
Yeah, that's true. I do have a positive attitude for the most part. I think it's definitely just a quality that I think is important. Doesn't mean I'm never negative. I just try to go into things with a good vibe. Because I feel like it's like the moral right thing to do for me.
Yeah, no, it seems very true to you based on my interactions with you off stage as well. You seem like someone who I feel like you have a good perspective on life. You know that life is short. You know that life is silly. I might as well make the most of it.
Yeah, for sure. It doesn't mean I don't struggle with those things too. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I can barely sleep all the time because I'm like, we're all going to die. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm not always walking around feeling great, but I try to put that out there because I just want to work with other creative people and have a really nice time and enjoy and just try my best to enjoy. For sure.
Yeah, one of my favorite jokes on your new record is in the bit Crush, where you say, it's nice to have a crush because you're not thinking about death all the time. That's just a very funny... Yeah. I'm not doing it justice. People should listen to the record, but that is a good outlook on life, you have to enjoy a life for what it is and not dwell. And I think there's a darkness in comedy, don't you think, that people get mired in when they're exploring their craft? I mean, like you say, there is some darkness on your new record. There's some darkness in your material, but ultimately it's a positive vibe.
Yeah, for sure. And I think perhaps I'm like my jokes are me kind of battling with that. You know what I mean? Like just trying to keep it positive when you do have the death thoughts creeping in right before you slip into dreamland.
Well, at the beginning of this chat, when we were talking about why you relocated to Brooklyn, you said something interesting to me, which is that you wanted to kick things up a notch. You've been in Toronto for a long time. Toronto's comedy scene, I think, has become more and more vibrant. But
great.
Yeah, it's amazing. Oh, by the way, and you're part of the. Don't forget to remind me to ask you about Laugh Sabbath, because that's a collective in Toronto that we should address. But I just want to follow through on this question about your decision to move from Canada to the States. From your perspective, would you say there are still some comedy infrastructure issues in Canada, in Toronto these days?
Oh, yeah. It's really hard to make a living, and it's really hard to pursue your career in television and movies because there's only like 3 shows, and and it doesn't look like it's gonna, there's gonna be any more anytime soon, and there's barely any movies. It's just really hard to get anything made or done there, and it's a bit of a struggle. And like we said, life is very short, so I have to move on to maybe where there might be some more possibilities for me to have more of a career in film and television, because it's a bit limited in Canada for me.
And I'm hoping you can expand upon that a little. I know you're not looking to solve these problems, but you address them, you allude to them. So I'm curious, because from my perspective, I mostly come from a musical background in terms of what I cover and who I speak with. And I happen to know that Canada, unlike America, unlike many countries, has a very good and fruitful granting agency system for cultural production. Comedy doesn't get lumped into that. Cultural production does, even though, like I said earlier, we have this rich, amazingly rich history. SCTV, Kids in the Hall, all these people, Mike Myers, Jim Carrey, like we have this rich history of great comedians and comedic voices. For some reason, comedy is still not treated as the art form it really is here. I don't understand. And plus JFL, I mean, one of the biggest comedy, if not the biggest comedy festival in the world, takes place in Montreal. Why, Sarah, why are we not more supportive of emerging comedians?
Well, I think a lot of people don't put their own money into stuff. Everything is government funded, and there's only 3 networks, and so there's only a certain amount of people in charge, and for them it's money making, less than, like more than it is like, let's foster the talent. Like it's cheaper for them to, put Big Bang Theory, have a Big Bang Theory marathon than it is to maybe make a couple new cool shows with some unique voices. And you can only fight that so much. Like I luckily was able to get funding, me and Steph Callender, to make Terrific Women as a web series with CBC Comedy. Yeah. And that was really cool. I mean, I honestly couldn't believe it. Steph's more positive than me. She's like, I'm like, they'll never do it, and then they said yes, and then I was like, oh, like cool. But but that also just feels like I felt like we slipped through the cracks somehow. Like I still can barely believe it. I don't want to be jaded and stuff like that, but it's really hard. And it's hard for them to make, I don't know, it's hard for them to like make movies and television, lots of movies and television. It's just really hard. It's really hard, and people don't want to put their own money in, so they do lots of grant applications, and that's a long process. And usually comedy will not. You have to like kind of lie and say it's a drama. Like I don't know. It's really weird. Like
it's very strange to me.
It's fractured. Yeah. And I'm just like, I'm getting old, and I have to like make as much with my life as I can before it's all over. And I just don't, it just doesn't feel as fostered there as it could.
Do we take ourselves too seriously up here? Is it just has Canada become too serious for comedy?
No, I don't think it's too serious. I think that there's just so much red tape, and I think there's only a few people in charge, and I don't think their passions are the same as the people who are like at Comedy Bar making like amazing original content all the time. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's a chain of command that's it's nuts too. Like, I don't know about you, but I always had a problem with authority, and then you have this like weird system where you have to like suck up to these like 3 people who have bad taste, and it's like I don't know what the point is,
Yeah, I mean, I ask you this because I think I've talked to you about this before. One of my memories of you and seeing you perform was doing like this weird warm-up gig at JFL 42 in like the Sony Center, which is like,
oh my God, that's the perfect metaphor for what my career is like in Canada as a comedian.
Yeah, it was basically, there was, I don't remember the bill. Do you remember whose show that was?
I was opening for Patton Oswalt, but I was the opening act.
Right. I think Aparna and Sherla opened for him that day. Yeah. So I hand in my ticket. I go to my seat. There's people talking as you would before a show starts. And then I squint I'm like, wait a minute, there's a comedian already on stage. What have I missed? And it's you just doing comedy to people who are walking to their seats. You do the best job you can. You're very funny. I mean, I'm paying attention. Lots of people aren't. I don't mind saying this. You leave, then the lights come down, and someone says, hey, we're starting the show, and here's an American comedian, Aparna and Shelley. Like, they didn't say it like that, but that's what I thought.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, it seemed very disrespectful to me, and it's one of the reasons why I wanted to ask you about this, because I think you have, and you've done some writing in Canada too for shows, is that right?
Yeah, I've written on a few sitcoms in Canada. I wrote for Spun Out, which was a CTV sitcom starring Dave Foley, and I wrote for a show called Stanley Dynamic, which was a kids sitcom, live action, but one of the kids in the family is a cartoon.
Okay.
But
right,
yeah,
so you have a lot of experience.
A little bit of experience, but like, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but that gig was nuts because it was like the music was still like they had music on and like the house lights were on and people were still finding their seats. And they're like, okay, here's your microphone. Go out and do 5 to 7 minutes. And so the Sony Center is like 6,000 seats. So it's like it's the biggest venue I've ever had, and which equates to probably one of the biggest opportunities I've ever had. So I go out there completely like ready to just make the best out of it. Like I'm put in a bad situation because they didn't start the show. They just want me to quote unquote warm people up. So I go out there and I do my set as best as I can, and I perform like everybody's watching, where really only some people are watching. People are kind of confused too. They're like, why isn't the lights down? Why isn't
yeah
whatever. And so I do it, and then I get off stage, and then they start the show for real, and then the true opener gets all the attention with the spotlight. And it was just funny. It's like even the woman who booked me, she was like, honestly, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't paying attention because I was talking to some people on my feet, and I was like, cool, okay. Like, so it's
Good
like,
Lord.
how many of these circumstances am I supposed to just like grin and bear when I have like true talent and skills? So I had to move.
Yeah, and that sucks. And you know what's going to happen now is when you blow up, everyone here in Canada is going to be very proud of you, even though the number one giant Canadian comedy corporation kind of shafted you a little bit. You know, they put you in this position where you don't get and by the way, I should say you're not the only Canadian comedian I saw put in that position at that year's festival.
No. I saw Rebecca. Luckily, I went because Rebecca Kohler did the night ahead of me, and I did a few. I did one for like Craig Ferguson and Hannibal Buress and stuff. But I went and saw Rebecca Kohler do it, so that way I could get a kind of like a feel for it. And I was like, okay, cool. So the feel is like zero respect and
yeah,
and a fight. You're going out there fighting. And then I remember I did a few of those shows, and one of them they were like, "Do you mind if we just keep the house music going during your set?" And I was like, "No, you cannot do that to me. It's already hard enough." And then another woman came up to me. She's like, "Hey, so would you mind just doing crowd work instead? Because obviously, but whatever." And I was like, and I said yes, but you know what? I didn't mean it, because I'm like, no, I'm in front of 6,000 people. I'm doing my material.
Yeah.
And so I just said yes. But the thing is Just for Laughs has been the one like thing that has elevated my. I've got to go there 4 times now. This past summer was the latest, and to do TV tapings and stuff like that. So it's like I can't look a gift horse in the mouth. Like they're like, it's like Just for Laughs lets me come back and do tapings and open for people, and it's the only opportunity I have to possibly get seen by somebody who could help me in any way.
Yeah.
So it's like. It's the best for me. But then you get put in those weird situations.
Yeah, no, I understand your position in it, in this situation totally. It just sucked to see it because I was already.
I appreciate you caring, because like most people don't care in the industry. They're like, yeah, that's just the way it is. But if everybody just says that, then no changes are ever made and stuff. You know, it blows.
Well, and also just because I'm sort of know how things work, I just thought, oh, they probably asked for grant money to have Canadian comedians from these Canadian granting agencies. But
right.
they just decided that, like, it's just sort of like lip service. Yeah, we're going to book a bunch of Canadian. On the website, it would say, like, here's like the headliners, and they're all always American. And then they'll be like, here are the other 42. And I always thought that seemed a little disparaging in itself. And then I see you in that position, and I just think they're filling a kind of a man. Oh, yeah, you know, we got some grant money for Canadian comedians. We got to put them somewhere. Let's just have them open for big league comedians while people are shuffling to their seats and eating popcorn, and there's music playing like that. I'm sorry, and I don't. You've talked about
no,
it.
it would have been so much better if I got the lights down with a spotlight so people could actually know that I was up there.
And to be fair,
I had a fighting chance.
Yeah, to be fair, this was a few years ago. I've been to JFL 42 since then.
They may have changed it.
Yeah, and I've seen some Canadian comedians do like 5 to 7 minutes like you did, and the lights did come down. But I don't know what was going on. Anyway, that was strange. And I'm sorry that you're not here, but I'm happy that you've released is this your second stand-up record?
Yeah, this is my second one. So my first one came out in 2015, and it's called Trouble in Paradise, and I really love that one too. I'm pumped. It's so good. You know, the comedy, like putting out a comedy record, is probably one of the best ways to make a living. So that's cool.
It's called They Know Too Much. Who's they? Who knows too much?
That's the audience. That's how I feel after I have a set sometimes. Like, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes I just feel like I'm having the best time, and I'm like, whoa, and I put so much out there, and then after I'm like, oh no. You know what I mean? And because, you know, I don't know. That's just it, basically.
Do you ever, like, you were talking earlier about how you heard a comedian talking about how there's not really genres of comedy, but
Greg Proops was saying that. Yeah,
that's right. But I kind of disagree with that. I think there are, like, and you mentioned a couple too, but you know, I was just drawing this distinction with a comedian from the States, Brad Wenzel, about one-liner comedians versus more storytelling or personal comedians, right? Where a one-liner comedian, you might not get a real sense of them personally. You might get a sense of their perspective on the world. But with a storytelling comedian, you're going to learn a lot about them on a personal level. So you have, on the one hand, someone kind of keeping their distance from their audience. On another, you have a very vulnerable performer who's just sharing everything about their lives. I feel like you're kind of in the middle of those two.
I'm not quite sure. It's interesting that you say that, because right now because of my album, I'm filling out all the information to submit it for the like XM radio stuff, so that way they can air it. And they need you to, for each track, you have to write down whether it's jokes or storytelling. You have to write exactly like what you cover in like your style. So they have different ones for me to choose from. So I definitely have to put. It's when they say storytelling or jokes, most of the time I have to put storytelling, even though I do have jokes within it. But I feel like I don't want people to expect. It's hard to classify yourself in this new way. But I'd say, I don't know, because I feel like if somebody's expecting jokes, they might be like, I don't know whether they'll understand. I don't know whether they might be, I don't know, surprised with, or find it surprising or unexpected. My style of delivery, because I feel like I have punchlines throughout my stories. That's obviously how it works in stand-up comedy. But but sometimes because of my type of delivery, just who I am, people might not. It's not as black and white, I guess. It's like
well, it feels real and surreal. Like, I feel like I'm learning about you, and or the version of you that you're putting out into the world, I should say. You know, a persona. But I also feel like that Kids in the Hall stuff comes through. That kind of more surreal, kind of like, just, you know, I'm just going out there. Like, this is just out of left field kind of stuff. You're good at that stuff. Like, I know that you have that sort of, there's like a manic energy sometimes where I'm like, oh no. This is not oh no, but just like, oh wow, like this is going. I've never said oh no to one of your jokes. I've said, oh wow, like I didn't expect you to take us in that direction. You know what I mean?
For sure, I definitely. That's why it's so difficult to classify comedy. Because you're like, well, 1 minute it's this and 1 minute it's this other thing. So what's this What do we say? Do we just hyphenate all these feelings that I'm having? Like, what's going on? I feel like that's why it's hard to describe it. Even though it has been helpful having you just kind of describe it back to me, because like even with this thing, I have to fill it right now so that way I get airplay. It's like, I don't know, man. It's like, it's difficult. And it's hard as well. It's a very independent thing that I do. Like, I think some people have managers and agents who can sit down and help them sort of strategize and everything. But I definitely feel very alone a lot of the time.
Do you feel like you do want to put up a little bit of a fence, so to speak, between you and your audience? Do you relish that kind of that sort of distance between your persona and your real life and what people perceive you to be like?
Oh, I just want to be funny.
Okay.
Like on stage,
right.
like it's just important to me that I'm as funny as possible, and it's just a great experience for everybody, comedy wise. Like
that was a very diplomatic. That was a diplomatic answer, I have to say. I've never. That's the most diplomatic thing you could have said.
Well, that's what everybody always says about me, you know? Diplomatic.
So did you release this record by yourself, so to speak?
That's right. Yeah, I released this one by myself. My last record, I recorded and got it mixed with people independently as well. But I put it out with Comedy Records, and they're pretty cool. But this time I decided to just do it on my own because it's how I make a living. So I don't. Since I got it recorded on my own dime and mixed on my own dime by other people who aren't them, I just don't want to give a cut to somebody, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Because I'm trying to pay rent.
No, that's fair. And when was it? When and where was it recorded?
We recorded. I recorded with the same night as Andrew Johnston at Buddies and Bad Times Theater in Toronto on April 13th.
Oh, it's just from a few months ago.
Yeah, and so we did that with our first records too. We both collaborated on an evening of album recording.
Oh, I see.
And yeah, and we've always had a great time putting on shows together. And so we did that together. And this one was it was like kind of a long night. Like it's like that last time I went first and he went second, but this time I went second, and we both kind of did like a lot of time, and so I felt like I really had to bring it, man, because it was like just definitely a long night of comedy, but the audience was amazing and it was so fun.
Yeah, and I have to say, and this might sound weird to some people, maybe even to you, but on a sonic level, this is a great sounding stand-up record. They don't always sound amazing, and this one sounds particularly good.
Oh, well, I used your technician.
You used my technician? Who's that?
Yes, I met him at your show.
Oh, did you use Dave McKinnon?
That's right.
Oh.
Dave McKinnon recorded it and edited it for me.
I actually had no idea, really.
Are you serious?
I really didn't know. I wasn't just trying to big up the recording. It really, you were on my long night talk show a couple times, and Dave would have recorded that. And so you met Dave probably, at the Transac in the fall?
Yeah, and but actually it was Matt Beckett from the Bicycles who suggested that I get him to record my album.
Oh, you know what? I remember Matt asking me for Dave's email, and I feel like he mentioned you were involved. Now that I think about it, that was
my God, Vish, you're a huge part of this album.
Well, again, I honestly and sincerely did not know that it was recorded by Dave. I just I thought about it while I was listening to it. Recently, like, it sounds really strong. Like, the crowd sound is big, and sometimes you don't get that. You know what I mean? This is like
totally, yeah.
I'm being a tech nerd right now, but sometimes that balance of a live show is really hard to capture between the audience and because if you're telling a joke and the audience sounds like they're in another room, it just doesn't work as a comedy record. It just
you need the right balance, because if the audience is too loud, you got to take that down too, because it can be distracting to the joke telling.
Right. Yeah.
It's crazy. It's wild. Yeah, you definitely need somebody who knows what they're doing to do it, because that's something where it's like you just have to defer to someone else's expertise, because I don't know. Like, when you're listening to it, but you just kind of hope for the best when you hire somebody.
Yeah, I only highlighted this in the context of us talking about you independently producing a comedy record, because I get sent independently produced comedy records sometimes, and I'm just like, this doesn't sound as good as it could have. Yours sounds totally pro.
Thanks so much. Well, you know what? Dave did a great job, and everything I do, like all of the different like comedy shorts I make, or even shows that I put on. It's a real community effort. Like you ask around, or you know somebody, or somebody knows somebody who's a good person to work with, and you end up finding the right people to help you make your projects.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
and it's just wild. It's so fun. It's like yeah, and then you go back to the people who really helps you out, or like who you gelled with.
Well, I think it speaks to your commitment to excellence as well.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I do have a commitment to excellence.
You do. I believe that you do, and that's why I bring it up. So what is sort of next for you? I mean, this record is just out. I think it's been out less than a week now, and is it being received well, so to speak? Have you gotten some nice feedback about it?
Yeah, so far so good. Like I said, I'm a bit of a one-man band, so I'm just trying to send it to people to check it out too. It's like, social media is cool, but you only have your friends on it, so I'm trying my best to, I just put it out there, and some people are being, other people in the comedy community are sharing it and tweeting about it, and that's really cool. And that's basically where I'm at right now. I think eventually I would really love to have some sort of like, somebody else who sees some potential who can help me out along the way.
Yeah. But it's fascinating. It's fascinating.
But for now, it's just me.
I was just going to say, like, I only heard about your record, I think, because I saw you tweet about it. Like, there was no press release. And it was out. It was like the Friday, I think it came out. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know this was forthcoming. So did I miss something? Sarah, did I make a mistake?
No, I just put it out. Like,
Beyonce style. You just like,
it's not the easiest to get press. Like,
yeah.
It's like you can put out a press release, but unless somebody likes you, they're not going to care. Like, it's just like, I don't know. I didn't even think about it. I think I put one out for the last one, and yeah, I don't think anybody really took the bait. So it's like, it's very independent. It's like, it can be like, maybe this is why I'm always just trying to have so much fun. It's because it can be such a bummer, like the industry. So
yeah, no, I hear you. And I'm wondering, objectively, sir, you've just put out a comedy record. This is in no way meant to diminish that. But don't you feel like there are a lot of comedy specials and records coming out every hour of every day now? Doesn't it feel like, I feel like Netflix puts one out once a week?
Yeah, and they recorded like 30 of them at Just for Laughs this year. It's pretty cool. Like,
it's a good thing. You think it's a good thing?
Well, yeah, because I feel like people like comedy the way people like music now, which is great. Like, so people are like, oh, my favorite bands. They're like, oh, my favorite comedians. Or you got to check out this, you got to check out that. I think people really like podcasts, or like everything. People are more invested than ever in stand-up comedy and in comedy programming. But I don't know. I've heard some interesting things. Like, there's some really awesome people who have Netflix specials, but then sometimes you're on Netflix and you're like, who's this person? Like it's kind of funny. Like, I hear that certain people, you can just sort of pay for one or something, but I don't know. Like,
no, I do ultimately think it's cool, and I think you're just alluding to the fact that there is actually this rich history of comedians who want to be musicians and musicians who want to be comedians. And it just makes me wonder if you're a music person yourself. At one point on your new record, you bust out some Alanis, and I am compelled by that piece every time it comes up. It's because I am like, she's got pipes. You can actually sing.
Oh, no, I can't.
Yes, you can. No,
oh my God.
You're very good. I was like, I thought it was
my
good.
My Alanis Morissette impression? Oh my gosh, so funny.
Are you a music person? Do you love music?
I definitely love music, and I'm always on the search for new music, because you find a song or a band that you love so much, and then, I don't know if you're like me, you listen to it so much, and then it stops having that feeling. It's like your honeymoon period's over, and you're like, fuck, I wore it out. Oh, it's great.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that for sure. Well, yeah. I just want to highlight the fact that, this record is out. Oh, yeah, I didn't actually get you to finish because my questions are all rambly, but what is coming up next for you beyond They Know Too Much? Are you touring? Do you have other stuff going on that you want to tell us about?
Well, I'm coming back to Canada to do my Autumn Jaunt tour this fall with Chris Locke and Tom Henry.
Oh, nice.
This is our third year doing it, and so we're doing a few more dates this time. We're going to be doing some East Coast dates like Halifax and Sackville.
Nice. Sackville's
and
awesome.
Then we're also doing like Waterloo, which we love playing, and we're starting off in Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa. And then, so this is our third year doing it, and then hopefully next year we'll be able to bring it to West Coast. But yeah, it's called Autumn Jaunt, and it's just a feel-good comedy tour with 3 fun comedians.
And when does it start?
It's gonna start, I think, November 8th. We're kicking it off in Toronto, and then, but yeah, we'll have more details out soon. We're just sort of locking down the venues and everything.
Okay.
But yeah. Another thing, it's a completely independent production. So like anybody who's like into it, like they should come.
Okay, I support that suggestion as well. Where can people go to learn more about you and this new record? They Know Too Much.
Cool. Well, it's on you can listen on iTunes or Spotify or whatever your favorite way to listen to stuff is. But I'm on Twitter, Sara_Hennessey, or there's sarahhennessey.com, and that sort of just gives you all the links to all my different other things. Okay. And we can be friends on all of them.
Now, is there one bit or track from this record that you would permit me to play for people right now so they can get a taste of what we've been talking about?
Well, we talked about Crush. Why don't you play that one?
Crush is a favorite one. I feel like I mentioned it twice.
Yeah, man, totally play that one.
I seem to have a crush on Crush. Do you currently have a crush, Sarah?
No, oh my God, I'm crushless and I don't know what to do about it. It sucks because my whole the best part about having a crush is that well, no, it's not the best. The worst part about having a crush is that you don't even own your own brain anymore. You can't stop thinking about your crush. But right now, it's I can do anything I want whenever I want, and it kind of annoys me because I'm like, oh, boy, would I love to fixate on a crush. All I can do is concentrate on me and I guess my goals.
Right. No, that's fair. I think the paternal side of me is worried about you having a Brooklyn crush. I don't know why.
Oh my God, I really appreciate that. I want people to be worried about my personal drama. But right now there is no drama to be worried about. Okay,
that settles my heart a little bit. I'm glad, and my mind. I'm glad you're okay. But I do wish for happiness and crushes for you in the future. This is Crush by Sara Hennessey from her excellent new stand-up record, They Know Too Much. Sarah, thank you so much for being on my show, and best luck with everything going forward.
Thanks, Vish. You're totally awesome.
Is my crush here tonight? Ugh, imagine. They could be. You know what I'm saying when I say crush, though, right? The best feeling in the world. Don't you love when you have a crush? You're like, oh my gosh, I'm not thinking about death all the time. Instead, I'm just thinking about outfits. I love a crush. And the most mundane things become so much more exciting. Like grocery shopping, I'm pretty over grocery shopping. I'm always like, yeah, I got it, arugula. But if I have a crush, I'm like, well, I'm just gonna put on this special mix and work those aisles. Because you might run into them. I've seen enough television and movies to know that if you run into your crush at a grocery store, that means permanent love. But if you run into a crush, you're like, oh my God, what are you doing here? You go grocery shopping? You eat food too? He's like, yeah. And you're like, whoa. Oh my God, that's so cool. So do you like 3 meals a day or a bunch of snacks? What's your style? He's like, I don't know, I guess it depends on the day. I'm like, you're so funny. That's so you. That's what I like about you. I'm holding a basket. I'm like, don't look in my basket. Don't look in it. And he tries to. I'm like, no, don't. Seriously, don't. Screw eyes. I think grocery baskets are the window to the soul. But then he sneaks a hard peek, and I'm like, oh. And he's like, what is that, a single potato? And I'm like, yes. And then he's like, are you okay? I'm like, no. Word to the wise, if you're grocery shopping, you have a potato in your basket, just circle back, grab second potato. All right? If people ask questions, just claim that you have potato supper with friend, you know? You seem very popular, very cool. But I gotta say, something completely traumatic happened the last time I had a major crush. You know those ones where you're like, I can't believe it's happening. We're gonna spend the rest of our lives together. But then in a casual conversation, he was like, oh yeah, you know, my partner, you know? And then partner's more than regular stuff. So then a lot of quick business had to happen in my head. I was like, don't look insane. So I was like, got it. And then I was like, she sounds fantastic. You know, you gotta be calm, cool, and collected on the outside. But I gotta tell you, it was a different story on the inside. On the inside, I was like, I want you to know that I'm happy for you. I wish nothing but, oh, that's her. The best you bring a green trench coat for you both. A green trench coat? I can't compete with that. What is she, a surgeon? I'm in love with her now. Crushing.
Special thanks once again to Sara Hennessey for appearing on this, the 422nd episode of Creative Control, which is part of the Entertainment One podcast network and is available on all iOS and Android platforms and also on things like Spotify, YouTube, and Audio Boom. If you can't find an episode that you've heard about and you're looking for it on any of those platforms, or if you want to learn more about me and sign up for my regularly scheduled newsletter, please visit my website, vishkhanna.com. All your Vishkhanna needs can be found at vishkhanna.com. You can like Creative Control on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at VishCreative, or follow me at Vishkhanna. You can also listen to a radio show version of Creative Control on Wednesdays at noon Eastern Standard Time around the world at CFRU.ca or on an actual radio at 93.3 FM if you're in or near Guelph. Also, please visit patreon.com/Creative Control to make a flexible monthly donation to keep this podcast going. We have a number of people who do this. We could always use more support, and you can pledge whatever you want a month, $1, $2, $350 million a month. It can be any amount that you choose, and you can also always cancel if you're not happy with what you're doing with your life. So again, patreon.com/Creative Control to pledge to this show. Thanks again to the in-kind support I receive for this show from people like Pizza Trokadero, The Bookshelf, Planet Bean Coffee, and Grandad's Donuts. Also, my friend Jim Guthrie lets me use the instrumental version of his song The Rest Is Yet to Come, and you can learn more about Jim at jimguthrie.org. And finally, thank you for listening to this show and subscribing to the podcast and downloading episodes. It really means a lot. I hope you will continue to do that and ask your friends who might like the show to try it out. You know, give it a spin, see if they like it, and who knows what will happen. Maybe they'll like it, I guess, is one of the things that could happen. That's all I have to say for now. I will talk to you very, very soon. Be well. Bye for now.